verses 1 to 6 and 9 to 10, and then jumping ahead to verse 19, I believe it is. The book of Esther is an extraordinary part of the Old Testament, and I think most of you know the story. Esther was a Jewish orphan living in exile who becomes a queen in the king's court, although to be a queen in the king's court was not necessarily an incredible thing. You were part of a harem, basically, to the king, King Xerxes. An advisor of the king in this story, named Haman, plots to kill the Jewish people. So Esther gets in a position where she must choose whether to risk her position, her privileged position, and her life by raising her voice, or simply remain silent. A scholar of religious literature named Sidney White Crawford writes, the book of Esther is a kind of Jewish novella set among exiles living in Persia during the reign of Xerxes. The main theme of the book is, she says, ironic reversal. The expected outcome in the story is always reversed. Esther begins as a humble orphan and becomes a powerful queen. The Jews are the intended victims of an edict of destruction, but become victors over their enemies. And this part of the story comes near the end, after Mordecai has urged Esther to raise her voice, even though it might risk her life. And so they have a feast, and Queen Esther is sitting next to the king. It goes like this. So the king and Haman went in to feast with Queen Esther. On the second day, as they were drinking wine, the king again said to Esther, what is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted you. And what is your request? Even to the half of my kingdom it shall be fulfilled. She must have waited till he drank enough to offer something like that. I don't quite know the backstory on that, but Queen Esther answered, if I have won your favor, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given to me. That is my petition. And the lives of my people, that is my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. If we had been sold merely as slaves, men and women, I would have held my peace. But no enemy can compensate for this damage to the king. Then King Xerxes said to Queen Esther, who is he and where is he who has presumed to do this? Esther pointed to his advisor sitting next to them and said, a foe and enemy, this wicked Haman. Then Haman was terrified before the king and the queen. Then Harbona, one of the eunuchs in attendance to the king, said, look, the very gallows that Haman has prepared for Mordecai, whose word saved the king, stands at Haman's house 50 cubits high. And the king said, hang him on that. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Ironic reversal for the saving of the Jewish people. Here end the scripture readings this Sunday. Sidney White Crawford also points out that in this story, and you can also hear it in the story of the wandering in the wilderness that we heard in the book of Numbers, there's a lot of humor woven within these stories that we tend not to pick up on because we take the scriptures so seriously and literally very often. But she claims that in a lot of these stories, there are points where you're meant to laugh out loud at what's happening. And when God starts behaving really angrily, and Moses has to rein God in and that sort of thing. But thinking about these stories, this is what came to me. You never know when or where or through whom Spirit will speak. Could be through a great prophet like Moses, or Martin Luther King Jr., or it could be through two unknown elders back at the camp, or a woman no one ever heard of who wouldn't move to the back of the bus. And it could be you. You never know when or where or through whom justice will flow into the world like water, like the rushing of a mighty river. Could be through a woman like Esther, who was told she had no right to speak to the king because she was just one woman in the king's harem. Or it could be through someone like Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, or any other woman who was told that to speak up would cost her life, that she had no voice until she did. And it could be you. You never know when or where or through whom the good news of God's love will break out, freeing the oppressed, healing the wounded, giving new sight to all who are blind. Could be through a man like John the Baptizer, standing knee-deep in the Jordan River, calling people to change, or an unknown rabbi from Nazareth on fire with God's love.